Howdy everybody, this is Hammer 6 here. Today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the word commitment. It's part of my command philosophy. It's kind of what I really believe. If you recall the 4 C's: courage, competence, candor, and all leads to commitment. What I wanted to do was read a couple of pieces that are kind of dated. I mean, the first one's a poem written in World War I. I don't know if any of you knew this, but World War I, you had some incredibly educated people writing about their experiences in war. So Ernest Hemingway was a private. So their ability to commit what they saw and what they felt into prose is just unbelievable, some of the stuff that they wrote. And so there's a poem here that we'll talk a little bit. And then the other piece is a piece that was written in the early 1980s as the Army was transitioning from a draft army to a volunteer army. And we really had to kind of reset things because there really was a significant difference between draftees and volunteer soldiers. The first one here is a poem written by John McCrae. He was a Canadian doctor. He'd been working on people all day during the Battle of the Somme, and he just found out that a guy that he had known growing up, or he was an older guy, but one of the kids in his neighborhood had also joined the army and had just been killed in action. And it really kind of, it affected him. And he wrote this poem, and this poem has come to symbolize war really for the Commonwealth countries. So when they have Remembrance Day, like we have Veterans Day, if you see the red flower, the poppies with the little yellow middle, that's the reason, that's the poppies come from this poem as being remembrance. So this is a poem about commitment, a poem about not letting the legacy of those before you go away. In Flanders Fields by John McCrae. In Flanders Fields the poppies blow between the crosses row on row that mark our place. And in the sky the larks, still bravely singing, fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders Fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders Fields. So let's kind of unpack this, right? Flanders is in Belgium. It's where a lot of World War I was fought. The Somme, also known as the meat grinder. The British lost more men in the first 3 days of the Battle of the Somme than we lost in the entire 10 years in the Vietnam War. They lost in 3 days. The way the British Army was set up at the time was what they called Kitchener armies. So the town leadership would basically become the military leadership, and all the males from the town would form a regiment, and off to war they would go. So when a place like the Somme hits, the entire male adult population of a town could be wiped out in a day. So that's why it's so heavy on them, World War I, the impact of it. Even though World War II was probably the closest they came to actually being invaded, since much, much earlier than that, World War I is really heavy in their psyche. So talking about commitment. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. So you think about the United States Army. We've been going at this for 200 and something years, right? Why is the U.S. military one of the most trusted organizations out there? And really it's because we haven't broken faith with those men in rags, men who froze. Still that army met its foes, right? We're the same people. Just from generation to generation, we've been committed to this nation, and we've been committed to a certain set of values, and we live by this we'll defend. And that torch has been passed from generation to generation to generation until it reaches us today. And that's what we can't lose sight of. Because the very next sentence is, if ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep. So we have to continue what we're doing and stay committed to the Army in order to honor their memory. And that's what this poem is about. The second one is called Going the Extra Mile. Now, the Army, not good on this one, but I think it was President Reagan that put an end to the draft. So we're probably about 1980, 81 maybe. And prior to that, the 70s were really rough for the Army. You had the tail end of the Vietnam War. Entire units were not going and patrolling because the draftees had basically taken over the some of the Army and said, hey, we're not going outside the gate. And if a lieutenant was eager and wanted to get his unit to get outside the gate and actually follow orders, they would frag the lieutenant. That was not uncommon. If a company commander or a lieutenant wanted to go into the barracks to check barracks, they took an MP squad that was armed with them. If you can imagine this, it was rough, to say the least. But then we switched over to a volunteer army, and this was written to kind of address those that had decided to stay. So the original pool of draft people that were now probably sergeants, and then for the new privates kind of coming in at the time. They had a program called Cohort that was interesting. They'd take everybody out of one class of basic training and go throw them at a division. Okay, so this is called Going the Extra Mile. Developing commitment is the second stage on the road to ethical excellence. Commitment is built on the foundation of courage and shows itself in three areas: commitment to soldiers, commitment to the mission, and commitment to the profession. Commitment to individuals is the cornerstone of our Army. It means keeping promises and coming through for the people who are depending on you no matter what. It is through this commitment that the bonds of trust, which is absolutely essential to our profession, are forged. Commitment to mission by every soldier makes the building blocks of a strong, prepared Army. Simple things like staying late to perform that extra needed maintenance when you would rather be home, or making one more training run to get it perfect when you're cold and tired instead of settling for the minimum. We must never forget that ultimately our worth to the nation is decided on the battlefield. The heroes of past conflicts, the soldiers who seemingly did impossible at Normandy, Bastogne, Incheon, and the Mekong Delta, these feats did not just happen. These soldiers' wills and spirits were hardened through countless hours of dull tasks and tedious drill long before they reached the battlefield. Commitment to the profession then is the mortar which binds individuals into units capable of achieving that SQT test or learning to perform at one level above your current one. It's taken the extra time and effort to look and be sharp. It's putting up with long hours, hard and dangerous work, and for little reward because you believe in the goals and the ideals of our Army and nation. Commitment to excellence is a hard road, but with courage we can achieve it. I mean, you read that and you get this, kind of Debbie Downer, long, hard hours vibe to it. But I mean, think about it. Are we in a thankless job, as soldiers and professionals? Well, back in those days, they absolutely were. Like I said, you got the whole Vietnam thing going, and after the war, there was just not much appetite to support the troops. It was a bad time. Nowadays, everywhere you go, there's a military discount, there's special parking, people say thank you for your service. We get that because the guys who wrote that, or the folks who wrote that page right there, are making sure of it because they're the ones who didn't get it. So just understand that commitment to our nation is reciprocated, but not always. So sometimes we're favored sons, and other times we're not. Because remember, all those dudes coming back from World War II, fighting and winning against the Axis powers, they had victory parades and everything else. One generation later, soldiers are coming out of Vietnam and getting spit on. So even regardless, either way, we're still committed to the nation. So just a couple of brief articles there to reflect on and kind of think about how you define commitment and how you reach commitment in terms of my 4 C's. How do you get to that final stage? Something to think about. And yeah, this is Hammer 6. Hit me up and we'll have a chat if you want to. All right, out.